Good morning, friends and enemies. In today's video, we will be going game by game, letting y'all know whether you should sit or start every single fantasy relevant running back in week 6. We do this every Wednesday. We will be doing the wide receiver version every Thursday, so make sure you're subscribed if you are not already. Let's jump into Thursday Night Football. Philadelphia travels to MetLife Stadium to take on the New York Giants. Philly is 7-point favorites in this one with a 40.5-point total. That is excruciatingly low, thanks to how Philadelphia's offense has operated the last couple of weeks. But Saquon Barkley, nonetheless, of course, is going into the must-start category. I know he's been a little bit underwhelming up to this point in the season. He's still a very, very high-floor RB1. I'd imagine every time the Eagles play the Giants, he is going to be on his best behavior. Now, there were some rumblings about his knee possibly causing him to miss some time. But yeah, he was a DNP on Monday. It's supposed to be just general soreness in this one. He was limited on Tuesday, and he says he's going to be a full go. I think the bigger point here to make overall with the Eagles right now, and maybe one of the reasons why they're struggling, is their offensive line. Landon Dickerson is going to miss this one. He had been struggling most of the year. They've got some injuries on the front there, but I don't think it's going to matter much in terms of what Saquon's going to do in this one. Now, on the flip side, we don't have lines for the Giants running backs right now because we don't know Tyrone Tracy's status. Now, he did return to a limited practice, still recovering from the dislocated shoulder injury. Don't know whether or not he's going to play. If I had to put money on it, I would go 51-49 in favor of him not playing. I still think it's a little bit early, and the fact that they are on a short week. If this was Sunday, maybe, but I'm going to proceed and I'm going to rank players as if Tyrone Tracy is not playing, which means Cam Scatterbo is going to be on the field playing his, normal workhorse role as he has been for the last couple of weeks. He's not necessarily breaking away big plays, but the volume is just so high that you can't really move away from him. And I think with Darius Slayton likely to miss, we could see, that target number continue to be a really, really high floor for a guy like Cam Scatterbo. And there's no one else that I want to be playing in this game. Moving to Denver at the New York Jets. Denver 7.5-point favorites, 43.5-point total. So really good game script. I mean, I am hard pressed not to put J.K. Dobbins in the must start category. He is dominating touches. He is dominating snaps. I will say the only thing leaving him closer to the feels good category for me, I can't put him into the Jahmyr Gibbs tier. I can't put him into that really, really solidified must start, despite how good he's been. He's not catching passes. He has not hit 10 receiving yards in a single game this year. So that's just not his role, which is a little bit of a surprise considering how many snaps he's playing and just how often Sean Payton's offense does just dump down to running backs regardless of what down and distance it is. Regardless, we feel great about J.K. Dobbins here. So he's going to be in the feels good category, but at the very, very top of it. On the flip side, Breece Hall, his run out is very, very pure right now without Braylon Allen. He's getting so many of the targets, so many of the snaps, so many of the just running back carries in general for the New York Jets. Tough matchup against Denver, obviously. A lot of red across the board. They're one of the best defenses in the NFL, of course. That being said, though, the work is going to be crazy. He's going to get a lot of dump offs. He's going to get a lot of garbage time work, probably. His lines this week are crazy high. Vegas has him at 67.5 rushing yards, which I would probably lean under on, and 28.5 receiving yards. He never really scores touchdowns, but the yardage and the touches are going to be there. And as long as Braylon Allen is out, that's what the case is going to be here. RJ Harvey, it looked like he was kind of on the come up here and might have had a little bit of a, hopefully a coming out party 2 weeks ago. Didn't really happen last week. Is still now splitting touches again with Tyler Bidet. So we don't really know what's going to happen here. The matchup is great. We could see some garbage time dump offs. Vegas actually has his line at 29.5 rushing yards, 14.5 receiving yards. So overall, you're looking at 45 yards. It is a really good matchup against the Jets, so I don't hate RJ Harvey this week. Obviously, the way that these tiers are going to shape up is this is likely going to end up being around the RB, 35 to 40 range probably, but I think you could do a little bit worse. That worse would be a guy like Isaiah Davis. He'll catch a few passes, but ultimately not seeing any real running work in this one, and the matchup is really, really tough. So we're going to put Isaiah Davis down the rather not tier. Arizona at Indianapolis. India's 6.5-point favorites, 47.5-point total. Arizona's defense, really good against the run. 28th in terms of EPA per rush allowed, but that doesn't matter because we have Jonathan Taylor, who is just dominating everyone's face every single week. He's a 30 fantasy point per game scorer. It is insane how good he's been despite sharing a ton of goal line carries with both Daniel Jones and Tyler Warren. Still leads the league by a wide margin in terms of carries inside the 5-yard line. The flip side, that's where we have to have a conversation. Obviously, Michael Carter was the starter, took the majority of the snaps, got the majority of touches, around 20 touches in this one, got the goal line work. So I'm going to say he's a very, very strong flex play for me, if not teetering on the feels good category. We kind of have to figure out what happens with Amari DiMercato. We saw Jonathan Gannon rip him on the sidelines. I kind of think they're going to give him another chance. Like overall, he's been a good player for them when they've needed him to fill in certain roles and in certain situations. I think DiMercato is going to end up having the same role that he had last week, which as we see wasn't really a good one, right? It's not one that I think is going to amount to a lot of fantasy points. And the only reason why he almost got home, obviously fumbled at the goal line there, let it go before he got into the end zone, was because he broke a big play, right? It was like 3 carries, 80 yards or something like that, which is obviously not repeatable. But I do think he could have a similar role to RJ Harvey. We saw Bam Knight, Zonovan Knight get involved a little bit after Amari DiMercato was benched. But I do think Gannon's probably going to give DiMercato a slight chance of redemption here. So, maybe benches him, whatever. Like, you don't really want to play Amari DiMercato, but I just wanted to get that take out there. Cleveland at Pittsburgh. Coming off the bye for Pittsburgh, Cleveland is 5.5 point underdogs. This is a 37.5 point total. I mean, Judkins, I don't know what else you could say. He needs to go right into the must-start category. He's been just dynamite every single week that he's been the starter, averaging 22.5 touches so far. Could have had another huge game last week, but had the 50-yard touchdown run negated by a holding penalty. So yeah, just not many more running backs that I want to own in fantasy on top of Quinshon Judkins. On the flip side, things got a little bit murkier here because Jaylen Warren missed last week. Kenny Gainwell played so well that we don't know what the touch distribution is going to be here. And Cleveland obviously has the best run defense in the NFL right now. As you could see, they are 32nd in fantasy points allowed for the running back position, 32nd in EPA per rush allowed. So dead last in terms of it being a good matchup for opponent running backs. I think Jaylen Warren comes back out and he reclaims most of the role. I do think Kenneth Gainwell probably now put in the head of Arthur Smith that he should have a decent role out here, but I still think it's Jaylen Warren's backfield to really lose right now. So I'm going to put Jaylen Warren in the dub flex category. I still think he gets enough work to warrant a spot in your lineup, and Kenneth Gainwell's going to be in the shaky flex category for me. Dallas at Carolina, another tricky one. Not on Dallas' side. Obviously, Javonte Williams at this point moves right into the must-start category. I mean, the over-under for carries for him this week against this Carolina run defense has to be like 21.5. On the flip side, we saw GOAT, God, King, Beast, Rico Dowdle pop off last week. The big question here is what happens if Chuba Hubbard returns. We don't have any practice reports yet because it is only Wednesday morning. The first practice report will come out later today. They labeled him as day-to-day last week. However, he didn't practice at all. So, it was great to have Rico in our lineup, but I will say, as someone who in their main league now has to roster both Carolina running backs, I think we're about to be in hell if Chuba Hubbard plays right now. That being said, he suffered a setback with the calf injury and then was all DNP'd across the week. So I still think there's a very real chance Chuba does not suit up in this one, which would put Rico pretty much in directly into the must-start category if Chuba is sidelined for another game. This is a fantastic matchup for both sides of the ball against the Dallas run defense. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. Now, if Chuba plays, this gets really murky. I actually think that Rico will be the better play if Chuba Hubbard is active. I think if he's active, he's still going to be a bit limited. And I think they're going to ride the hot hand of Rico and be able to just say, oh, Chuba's kind of still recovering. He's still, getting better. And we want to wait till he's at full strength to give him his workload back. But for right now, the way I'm going to play this in my lineup is that if Chuba ends up playing in this game, Rico is going to be a dub flex for me. I'm going to play him over Chuba, and Chuba is going to go into the shaky flex category. And of course, if Chuba doesn't play, Rico is going to go into the must-start category. Moving down to the Chargers at Miami, of course, Achane is going to go into the must-start category. On the flip side, of course, this is a murky backfield now that Amari Hampton is out, Najee Harris is out. Sorry, all the new players I put in this week don't have headshots for whatever reason. I can't figure out the goddamn software. Let me live. The reason it's important to get this right, of course, is that they play the Dolphins, who are probably the best matchup in the league for opposing running backs. It's difficult to figure out how this game is going to play out. Right now, the Chargers are 4.5 point favorites. It's a 44.5 point total. Kamani Vidal feels like a more exciting upside play. I do feel like in the first week, they probably trust Hassan Haskins more than they trust Kamani Vidal. I don't know how this backfield's going to play out. If there's not a running back touchdown in this one, both of them are likely going to disappoint. I could see the Chargers going extremely pass heavy in this one. A lot of short passes probably, but that's how their receiver core is kind of made out. Like they are made out with Ladd, Keenan Allen, like they are built to have that game plan be successful for them. We saw Herbert under a ton of pressure. I don't know how successful a running back can be in this offense running the ball without Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt. So I'd imagine it's going to be a lot of quick passes, which could lend itself to some dump offs for the running back position. The way that I would play this backfield out for this first week is that I would actually have Haskins ranked above Kamani Vidal, but they're both going to be shaky flexes for me. I'm going to have Haskins higher in the shaky flex category, nearly towards the top of it, because I think he's a decent bet. When the anytime touchdown lines come out, I bet Haskins is in the minus 110 to plus 110 range, where you're playing against the Dolphins. The Chargers are going to have a decent amount of scoring opportunities, and I think Hassan Haskins does get the goal line work there. So that's my way of thinking. It's really going to come down to whether or not, those first few weeks, right? I said in yesterday's video, and I was talking through my waiver wire thoughts on these two guys. Through the first 5 weeks, they had one running back touchdown inside the 5-yard line, did Amari and Hampton. A lot of that has to do with the fact that Herbert was just slinging from all over the field, connecting with Quentin Johnson on deep touchdowns, connecting with all these receivers on touchdowns from, 30, 40, 70 yards out, which obviously does not allow for goal line opportunities to happen. So if they end up going in that direction where Johnson, connects for a deep touchdown, Ladd breaks free for a deep touchdown, then it's going to be hard for these guys to end up getting into the end zone. So ultimately, yeah, I don't feel great about them because we don't know the role of them. But I do think with these situations, like week 1, the coaching staff probably just goes with the guy that they have the most trust in. And I think for right now, it's probably Haskins. Maybe Vidal makes a big play or two, and then going forward, you have that role reversal happen. But for right now, I do think they're just going to lean on the guy that they trust a bit more. And I would project Haskins to have more touches than Vidal in this one. Next up, we got the Rams at Baltimore. So the Rams are 7.5-point favorites. Baltimore is obviously just decimated on both sides of the ball right now. Don't know if Lamar is going to play. Apparently, there's some reports that he's trying to battle back for it, but they have the bye next week. So again, it's probably more of a long shot, and they will likely rest him through the bye and be good on the other side of it. The more pressing issue is their defensive side of things. Again, we don't have practice reports yet for this game, but last week they were missing Kyle Hamilton, Roquan Smith, Marlon Humphrey, Metabike. Like their entire defense was just cooked Johnstein. So nothing that they were able to stop. So Kyron Williams, of course, just goes right into the must-start category. I think based on game script, I think based on how many touches the backfield might get, I'm not going to say Blake Corum's a shaky flex, honestly, because I don't want to start him at all, but, he's on the spectrum. The other side of the matchup gets difficult because you have Derrick Henry, who's been pretty disappointing following the first week or two of the fantasy season, hasn't had many explosive plays. This offense is obviously the bigger problem right now. Last week, they ran 40 plays, okay? They ran 40 plays, which is not something we're going to see again. I hope not, right? But anytime you run 40 plays, like you're not going to be able to have success. Most teams run somewhere from, 56 to 62 plays in a given game. So we should see an increase of 15 or so plays for them. If Lamar ends up playing, obviously Derrick Henry goes into the must-start category. I still think, you just have to start Derrick Henry, unfortunately. He's going to go into the feels-good category. He won't be a must-start for me, though. Like maybe some of you guys drafted Javonte Williams and got Quinshon Judkins late, and then you already had one of these stud running backs. There's a world where you have 2 running backs that you're starting over Derrick Henry, and I really wouldn't blame you for that because, 1, the Rams are a very good defense. 2, the state of the Ravens right now in terms of the game script for this one, like Stafford, if he wants, if they go pass heavy, Stafford could put up 14, 21 points within the first, 18, 20 minutes of the game if their secondary is still depleted here. And if that's the game script, Derrick Henry could end up with 10 carries in this one, and that's going to be a problem, obviously. Moving to New England at New Orleans, we have the Saints as 3-point underdogs at home. This is a 45.5-point total. Drake May is playing really well right now. The Saints coming off of their first win. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to do with Alvin Kamara right now. I want to put him in the dub flex category, but realistically, he's not getting enough work, and Kendre Miller is eating more and more into his workload, especially the rushing side of things. I tweeted this out yesterday. If you're not following me on Twitter, obviously go do so at Nick Ercolano. Alvin Kamara has scored 2 touchdowns over his last 13 games. And the other issue with the Saints right now is Kendre Miller got more carries than Kamara did last game. Taysom Hill's return, people aren't really talking about it because the production was terrible, but he got 6 carries. When they get inside the 5-yard line, I have absolutely no idea who's getting the goal line touches. It might be Kendra. It might be Taysom Hill. It might be Kamara. So for me right now, man, I mean, also the way that the New England defense is starting to shape up, like getting Christian Gonzalez back, their run defense has already been really, really good. As you could see, 28th in fantasy points per game allowed to the running back position, bottom 3 matchup for running backs in terms of EPA per rush allowed. I think you got to put Kamara at the top of the shaky flex category, but there are a lot of players I would probably rather play over him. I think Kendra is kind of in the same mold. Like last week is exactly what I think you're going to be able to expect from Kendra more often than not. If he doesn't get a scoring opportunity, he's going to go and see 10, 11, 12 touches and probably have 55 to 60 yards, which is not great for your lineup, obviously. On the flip side, we got Ramondre, who fumbled again. Here's the reality of the situation. Trayvon Henderson's not going to be a full-time player. Antonio Gibson, though, is now out for the year with the torn ACL, which raises the floor of Ramondre and Trayvon Henderson, of course. I just don't think they're going to bench Ramondre anytime soon. I just think his skill set just works really well for this offense. And to be honest with you, like I feel good about Ramondre this week. I actually think he's probably going to have 15 touches. And I think in a matchup versus the Saints defense, I feel pretty damn good about it. Trayvon Henderson, I am less enthused about. It's a good matchup again for the Saints, and he could always explode for a touch any given week. And I do think the volume floor now raises pretty significantly based on the fact that Gibson is out. So maybe those 5 or 7 touches that Gibson was getting split between Ramondre and Trayvon, and now his touch floor is around 10 touches, 11 touches a game. So I feel okay about him. I'm not going to say he's a dub flex until he really proves that he can be in that category. He's definitely at the very, very top of this tier here, shaky flex. You could do worse, but you could also do better there. Next game, we got Seattle at Jacksonville. This is a 1.5 point favorite game for Jacksonville. This is a 46.5 point total here. This is a really, really tough Seattle run defense to succeed against. We saw Rachaad White get home because he scored some goal line touchdowns, but had a lot of trouble running the ball. I think that's going to be the same case with Travis Etienne. He's played okay in tough matchups like we saw against the Chiefs on Monday night. He's fine. He's still their guy. So I still think, he definitely deserves to be in your lineup. Tutin's not really touching the ball, so he's a rather not for me. On the flip side, again, I think I encapsulated this in a tweet I put out 2 days ago. Every single week, Kenneth Walker is going to put together the most impressive 10 for 90 and 0 touchdown stat line you've ever seen. And Zach Charbonnet is going to put together the least impressive 10 for 40 and a touchdown line you have ever seen. So with that being said, if a touchdown breaks in the right way for Kenneth Walker, he's going to have a big game. If it doesn't, he's going to be okay and probably be a decent flex for you. So I'm going to put Kenneth Walker in the dub flex category. Charbonnet is going to go into the shaky flex category. I know he continues to score touchdowns. The problem is if he doesn't get the touchdown, his floor is so low. He's a guy who's going to put you up 4 fantasy points if he doesn't get there. So he'll continue to be in the shaky flex category for me unless one of them gets hurt. Next up, we got Tennessee at Las Vegas. All right. The Raiders are 4.5 point favorites in this one, 41.5 point total. Vegas loves Genty this week, 72.5 rushing yards, 17.5 receiving yards, anytime touchdown prop of -150. I just don't see how you would ever sit Genty in this type of matchup versus Tennessee. You could see green across the board here. On the flip side, things are a little bit tricky because Tajay Spears returned, and we expect him to continue to get a little bit more and more work as each week passes by. Tony Pollard still has a very high workload volume floor, but we're going to expect him to start losing a little bit more of the passing game in this offense. It's a pretty good matchup against the Raiders. I think on a weekly basis, as you can see, his anytime touchdown number is +110. He's like a coin-ish flip to score a touchdown. So ultimately, I still think I put Tony Pollard in the dub flex category. Tajay Spears, he's in the rather not until we see his workload actually increase. But Pollard's, teetering between these two tiers, dub flex and shaky flex for me. Cincinnati at Green Bay. Green Bay, 2 touchdown favorites here at home versus the atrocious Cincinnati Bengals right now. 44.5 point total. I mean, we said Javante's carry line was probably at 21.5. Jacobs might be at 40.5. He goes right into the must-start category, coming off of the bye, well-rested against a terrible run defense. On the flip side, we haven't talked about Joe Flacco coming to the Bengals. So what do I think it means? I think there are a lot of people that are trying to be too smart and be too cool and be like, yeah, Joe Flacco playing behind a bad offensive line. It's going to be more of the same as every other landing spot that he's been in. Guys, it can't get worse than Jake Browning. Like, Jake Browning has legitimately played the worst 3-4 week stretch of football that we've seen from a quarterback in a very, very long time. They couldn't get first downs. Like, every time they got a first down, it was like a miracle for that offense. All you need is a QB that could put the ball in the vicinity of Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And Jake Browning was unable to do that. So this is, of course, an upgrade. The way I would order it in terms of like who it impacts the most, I think everyone gets a little bit of a higher floor. We already knew Chase's ceiling was wide receiver 1 on the week. We saw it last week with Browning. We saw it earlier on in the season with Burrow. That's almost like quarterback irrelevant. I think the biggest winner by far is T. Higgins. I mean, T. Higgins was liable to put up like 0 to 2 fantasy points every single week with Jake Browning at quarterback. I think this allows him to have a legitimate floor going forward. For Chase Brown, I mean, he's just doing nothing efficiently right now. He is getting some checkdowns from Jake Browning, and I expect that to continue with Joe Flacco, who's a guy that loves to check down to his running backs. And I think this is a much better situation for Flacco in terms of like fantasy and padding stats because Cleveland had a great defense, you know, so it wasn't like they always needed him to throw the ball a lot. Didn't need him to throw the ball downfield. Cincinnati's going to allow 21, 28, 35, 40 points per game going forward. So I like this for Flacco stats. Do I like it for Chase Brown? I think he's a little bit better now. The matchup again is really tough. It does open up though. Like down the stretch, the matchups get way easier for Cincinnati. This was always going to be a really tough stretch for Jake Browning and the Bengals offense. Chase Brown though has not topped 71 total yards in a game yet. So at this point, yeah, he's going to be in the shaky flex category for me. He's a guy that, you know, we could project for 12, maybe more touches, but ultimately, yeah, there's a lot of guys you could start over him. San Francisco at Tampa Bay. San Francisco is 3-point underdogs, 47.5 point total. We don't have a lot of lines yet because we don't know the wide receiver situation. We don't know the quarterback situation. If I had to guess, I think Mac Jones probably gets another start in this one. If not, 2 more starts with Brock Purdy re-injuring that turf toe. Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, if I had to guess, I think at least one of them suits up. Most, I would rank it Juwan Jennings and then Ricky Pearsall, but I think there's a good chance both of them are back in this one. That actually doesn't matter at all for this video because Christian McCaffrey, of course, is a must start. On the flip side of things, Bucky Irving is going to miss this game. So Rashad White, you know, he gets home for fantasy last week. Very tough matchup against Seattle, but gets into the end zone. I think we're going to see a lot more of that again. Tough matchup against San Francisco, who's one of the better defenses all around in the NFL, but he's going to get a featured workload. He's going to catch dump offs from Baker Mayfield. He's going to get a lot of carries. If they get by the goal line, he will be that back as well. So he's definitely in this tier, if not near the top of it. Sunday Night Football. We've got a fucking phenomenal game here. Detroit at Kansas City. Detroit 2.5 points underdogs, 52.5 point total in this one. You just want pieces, of course. Gibbs is going to go into the must start category. I'm skeptical about David Montgomery. I'm not going to lie to you, but he's definitely going to go into the dub flex category. It just feels like his games, his good games are very predictable. His bad games are very predictable as well. Like they just have clear game scripts of how they want it to go. That being said, the Chiefs here, number 3 in EPA per rush allowed. So sneaky, not as good of a run defense this year as most people probably think that they are. Overall, I think Demont's fine. He's kind of a low floor. He has had games where he's been a very low floor player, and I wouldn't be totally surprised if we saw that, but he's always liable to score a touchdown, of course. On the flip side, Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco are kind of like a bad version of Seattle, where it's like, you know, both of them are probably going to get 10 touches and you're just kind of figuring out who's going to score the touchdown. Unfortunately for Isaiah Pacheco, who is pretty much unplayable at this point, same thing with Brashard Smith until we actually see an increase in the workload. I will say with Brashard Smith, every time he's on the field, they are targeting him. He doesn't play a lot of snaps right now, and they're using him inside the red zone and inside the 10-yard line. And I'm definitely not playing him in fantasy, but if I were you, I would suggest hitting Brashard Smith's anytime touchdown line in each of the next 2 weeks. I think he scores a touchdown in one of the next 2 weeks. So he's plus 370 right now, which means if you play that in 2 weeks in a row and he hits, that's profitable. Kareem Hunt, on the other hand, is actually tied amongst running backs top 7 in terms of carries inside the 5-yard line. So we know who the goal line back is. We know who the short yardage back is. And if this is going to be a good and improving offense, and both running backs are going to get 10 touches, at this point, you're just going to take the guy who's going to be on the goal line when they get down there. So I don't want to start Kareem Hunt, but if I'm choosing between Hunt and Pacheco, to me, it's pretty clearly Hunt. Moving on to the doubleheader of Monday Night Football, we've got Buffalo at Atlanta. Atlanta, 4.5 point underdogs, 49.5 point total. In this one, of course, Bijan's going to be a must start. Of course, James Cook is going to be a must start. Tyler Algier, people are going to get cute with it. For me, he's barely a shaky flex. That's, you know, pretty straightforward here in that one. Chicago at Washington is the next Monday night game, starting an hour later than the original game. We've got Chicago as 4.5 point underdogs at Washington in this one, another 50.5 point total. So we've got some big games expected from these guys. This is a bit of a fun one to talk through because we've got DeAndre Swift, who everybody hates and everybody thinks is the worst running back of all time. I will let you know that through 5 weeks of the season, he is averaging more fantasy points per game than he did last year when he was a 1,300-yard running back, and the previous year when he played in Philadelphia. So his fantasy points per game have been better this year than each of the last 2 years. And while everybody thinks Kyle Monangai is like the savior of this fucking team, and everybody loves to cite the fact that DeAndre Swift's EPA per rush is bad and his rushing yards over expected are bad, they're still better than Kyle Monangai. So he is not the savior here. I am interested to see what changes the Bears make coming out of the bye, because they're a very rookie-heavy team. Like, I don't think Kyle Monangai is good, but he's still getting a lot more work than almost any other day 3 running back pick. Like, he's a clear part of their offense. You have Luther Burden and Colson Loveland, top 40, top 10 picks here. Coming out of the bye, do we see them entrenched more into the offense? So we could see changes in the Chicago offense. I don't think it's going to come to the backfield, though. So for me, DeAndre Swift's going to be a dub flex. Feel fine playing him. The flip side of the ball is where things get really, really interesting. We have Ja'Cory Krosky-Moret, who had his breakout game last week, went crazy, 150 from scrimmage, touchdowns, playing really well. And you have perfect storm here where he's playing against the Bears, one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. I kind of look at him similarly to Michael Carter in terms of what I expect, like workload-wise, but the matchup is fantastic. Last week's breakout game did not really feel fluky. The other games that they've played up to this year, everybody's been getting like 8 touches and someone scores a touchdown or someone has a breakaway play. Ja'Cory Krosky-Moret kind of dominated the backfield in terms of snaps, in terms of touches, and continuously made big plays. That felt like the week that the breakout was real, cemented, and solidified. I love the matchup, especially with Jaden Daniels back. The holes are going to be big in the offensive line. Ja'Cory Krosky-Moret, get him into your fucking lineups. So I'm in. Everybody else in this game is a rather not for me. And that's going to wrap up the running back preview for week 6. As always, if you want my full rankings, exactly how these guys stack up, order, flex, running back, wide receiver, all that kind of stuff, that is available in the Big Dog membership, BDGE.co. That's where you can sign up, or the cheapest way, if you want it free for 3 months, you can go to our partner, MGM, their app, their website, use code BDGE. If you're a first-time depositor, $10 or more, play any slip on that website, and they're going to hit you with a promo code in their app, in their little message system that you can use on our website, BDGE.co, to get our Big Dog membership free for the next 3 months. So basically the remainder of the season. I should also note the 2 teams on bye in week 6, Houston and Minnesota. So you've got no Nick Chubb, you've got no Woody Marks, you've got no Jordan Mason. That probably should have been addressed at the beginning of the video. You guys play fantasy, you see the big bye next to the players in your lineups. Don't start guys that are on bye, okay? That's a pretty good piece of fantasy advice if I can give you any throughout the video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the button that looks like this. That is the finale of the week 6 running back preview. As always, we'll do the same exact thing for wide receivers tomorrow. So make sure you're subscribed if you want to see that video. All right. I love y'all. Smoochies.